Everyone. I'm Travis Brock, Superintendent of the Affton School District, and appreciate Erica Chandler, our Communication Director, joining us, and then Katie Mears, our Special School District Director. So I appreciate Katie suggesting that we hold this webinar specifically to get some uh, information out and some questions answered for our special education parents. So appreciate her suggesting to do this. And those of you who might have been with us last week, you know we did something similar with some other information. And now that we've made some of those decisions, it is definitely time to turn our attention to some other details that do our best to address today, and then certainly keep up with right up until the first day of school. So thanks to everyone for joining us. And I'm not going to talk too much up front, but I do just want to go over just a little bit of information that probably a lot of you already know, or maybe you've been a part of, so I'm not going to belabor it, but I do just want to run through a few items before I hand it over to Katie. And so I'm going to share my screen, and this might look familiar to a lot of you. The webinars we did were explaining some of the ways we envisioned approaching the start of school. And so kind of leading up to our this past weekend, we were considering a number of options in regards to how to start the school year. And so I just want to run through some of those real quick. And as you know, a couple things that we were wanting to keep in the forefront of our mind were health and safety and equity in learning. So once again, that's why we're trying to take care of as many items as we can, knowing that those top two items really are trying to guide the work and the plans that we put together. At the same time, we do know communication, adaptability, and readiness are also key items that we believe are going to be important going forward this school year. And certainly what we're doing tonight is trying to communicate and put out some information that hopefully will help people move forward. So once again, not to go into too much depth, but just to refresh everyone's memory on our learning options. And so going into this school year, we knew we had to have a number of different plans ready to go. I think we all knew that there were going to be some folks who felt like learning from home was going to be a decision they needed to make for themselves. So we wanted to make sure we had an online option for them. At the same time, as much as I think everybody would love to be on site, we also knew the reality could be we might not be able to make that happen at all times during the school year. So that's why we knew we needed to have a couple different options in regards to how in-person learning might look. And so unfortunately, we have decided to start in the 100% distance learning option. We certainly hope to be able to transition into fixed blended. Certainly if circumstances allow that we can get all the way back to in-person learning 5 days a week, that would be great. We do have a number of families that have chosen the virtual academy, so maybe that's not quite as much of a stretch as it might have seemed at one point, but certainly these are some of the various options that we knew going into it we might have to deploy. And as we announced on Saturday, we are going to start with 100% distance learning. These were the virtual options, and a little bit of what we'll get into today. Even for families that had chose virtual, we knew there might be instances where they wanted to come on campus for specific reasons. And so that was always in the back of our mind that could be necessary for those families that were choosing virtual. And now that we're all 100% distance, we still think that that's something that we should consider. And we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. One of the things that I want to point out, which hopefully you're aware, our commitment to trying to make sure our families and our kids are prepared this year to learn is making sure that everyone has access to a Chromebook. So all of our students K through 12 will have Chromebooks. Encourage them to take, to have them with them. We're trying to provide assistance with internet connection. If you need that assistance, we have the ability to assist. Most importantly, regardless of how we started this school year, we knew we need to streamline things for parents. So we're going to have one main point of access for all of the learning. So whether you have an elementary student or a high school student, the learning management system is called Canvas. That's where all of the important essential items are going to be located to try to make it as easy as possible for students and parents to keep up. And then likewise, we're going to use the remind feature so that when teachers need to alert students and parents to important learning information, we've got one way to do that. So those are some things that we think could be helpful, and we're prepared to implement those items this school year. As you know, although we're not starting the year in person, we continue to make arrangements, and not knowing exactly how we would start the school year. Just so you know, we are continuing to make sure our facilities are ready to go, as students may have occasion or reason to access the facility prior to the end of first quarter. But we just want you to know that we are still making all of those preparations to make sure that the environment is as safe as possible, with proper signage and just anything you can think of in regards to making sure the facility is in good working order and keeping health and safety at the top of mind. Some things that we went over during the reopening planning, just all of these things are going to continue to be at the top of our mind. And so whether we have hundreds of kids coming on campus or whether we just have 10 kids coming on campus at a particular time, we still are going to ask that a lot of these things be part of our operations this school year. So like I said, I'm not going to go through all of those, but just so you know, we still every day are preparing on how will these things look when teachers come back, how will these things look when students come back, regardless of how many folks we actually have in the building at any particular time. And then lastly, kind of one thing I'll just wrap up with before I hand it over to Katie is, as I mentioned, we did make a decision on Saturday the 25th to start our first quarter online with distance learning. I think we were only the 5th district at that time to make that announcement. Last count, we're up to 16, with a couple more strongly considering that as an option with the start of school year. First day of school, still planning to be Monday, August 24th. So we're going to stick with the adopted calendar and have the first day of school begin then. And then lastly, just the end of first quarter is scheduled to be Friday, October 23rd. We'd like to get a definitive decision on what second quarter may bring well ahead of that date. And so that's something we'll be monitoring throughout the first month of school. So with that, just wanted to kind of make sure we were all somewhat on the same page with some decisions that had been made, some directions that had been charted in regards to information that became a whole lot more clear on Saturday. And then certainly we've been proceeding with that in mind as we're preparing for the month leading up to the first day of school. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Katie. I know she's got some more specific information about special education and some things that her and her folks are working on to start the school year.
I didn't unmute myself, sorry. Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Mears, and I am the Director of Special Education in Affton, and I'm excited to be here, and it is certainly a learning curve to take on this position during COVID-19, but I'm really excited that I know most of everybody that's already in special education, so except for the kindergartners, which I'm very eager to meet. And I just hope that tonight we can help answer some of your questions, as well as just provide you a little bit more guidance so that you know kind of how we plan on helping your students and where we're going to go from here. So Dr. Brock and Erica Chandler already were introduced, and I just want to say how much I appreciate them very much, because they have helped so much in just the guidance of what this can all look like and how to get out information to you. My objectives for tonight is just to provide families that already have students in special education. I want you to know what special ed will look like in the fall. I want you to also know how it will be different than it was last spring, because I know that we've had a lot of questions on that. And then I also know that some of you are on here because you are currently having your student evaluated for special education, and I know that that looked quite different in the spring than it normally does, and so I hope to provide you a little bit more guidance on that as well. And of course, I do have to just mention that we are going to continue to provide you updates as they happen, because things are still changing, unfortunately, every day. Please be mindful that plans are evolving, and so as they do, we will keep you as updated as possible. SSD's guidance has changed quite a bit, and so as that happens, I'm going to let you know. That's one of the reasons I know a lot of you were hoping to get a little bit more information prior to now, but that's one of the reasons why we really did want to wait. We wanted it to be as finalized as possible prior to you coming back to school. And then just please know that at the end of this presentation, I do have all of my contact information, and I'm happy to talk to you at any point in time. I know sometimes it's hard while you're sitting in here just taking it all in, and the questions come later. So I'm happy to answer any of your questions. So I wanted to first start with just some expectations that you can have on the special education staff as we continue in this distant learning, virtual learning that we move into now. And so I'm the director and area coordinator in Affton, and I'm always available to you for support. I'm always available to your students, to all of the principals, as well as administration and just everybody, the staff. I'm available to general education. So please know that we're all working together to help make sure that this fall is a great learning environment for your students. For your teachers and case managers that are in special ed, they will be helping you create a distant learning plan, and I'm going to go into much more detail of what that will look like because it will look quite different than it did last year. They will still be your students' case managers. They will be your points of contact. There will be other service providers, of course, that are not the student's case manager if your student receives several services, but they will be your main point of contact. So we did hear a lot of communication last year was difficult just because there were so many people. So one of the things that we did try and change this year is to allow for you to really have one point of contact. And we will be working together to make sure that that happens. I know several of your students have related service providers. That might be a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, or a speech language pathologist. And those, they might be your student's case manager if that's the only service that they have, but they might also just be a support for your student. So they are going to be providing lessons virtually. They will also be, some of those lessons will be small group. If you need for them to be one-on-one, and that is decided upon at the distant learning plan meeting, then those will be provided as long as we get permission from the educational decision maker. Paraprofessionals we know are so important to our students, and they make such a difference on the success of our students. So they are still providing instruction. They are going to be directed, and their schedules will be created by the supervising teachers. So they might be including, they might prepare materials for your students, they might collect data, they might support live sessions, whether in the general education or special education, and they might also be a part of small group virtual lessons. And then finally, the other main person that I think is supported, that supports several of your students, are the ABA associates. And their minutes will vary according to the IEP and DLP that is created, but I wanted to give you an example that they might provide 2 virtual lessons for students and monitor the paras providing some of those students as well. They are actually going to have an hour of office hours for your student every day, which will be great because I know a lot of parents had a lot of concerns and questions, and now they will be able to be available to you to answer those. And so Dr. Brock already went over this, so I won't go into it too much, but you know, as of right now, we are 100% virtual. We do want to be very student-centered though, and right now our buildings are not shut down. So because of that, we want to offer in-person learning if needed. So what that will look like is that we are going to start 100% of the school, we will start virtually. So in a few minutes, I'm going to show you this, and it says basically that our teachers are going to come back on August 12th. That's a couple of days before the Affton teachers come back, but the special education teachers come back on August 12th. I'm going to have orientation, and we're going to have some professional development for the teachers, but basically around that time, they're going to start trying to contact you to create these DLPs. And I do just really ask that if you are seeing phone calls coming from Affton, that you really answer, because we want to get these DLPs completed as quickly as possible so that we can provide the best schedule for your students. So we, like I said, we are starting the year 100% virtually. However, the DLPs are going to be reviewed every 2 weeks, and that's not after just the first 2 weeks. It's every 2 weeks while we're in this first quarter and while we are on a DLP for that matter. So I want you to understand that if something's not going well, or if something's going really well at that evaluation after 2 weeks, I really want to urge you to please explain those concerns or those strengths with your case managers, because that's how we build the next DLP, and we want it to really work for you and your families. So strengths are just as important as things that aren't going well, because we don't want to stop doing something that is going really well for your families. So I really urge you to try and think about that as the weeks go on, and be prepared for the teachers to call you and evaluate how that's going. So when there's a specific service that maybe isn't going well virtually, then what we're going to do is we're going to work as a team, just like we would as an IEP team, to try and determine what our alternatives are. So as Dr. Buck mentioned, we are trying to significantly limit the amount of students in the buildings, but if there is a reason why the team determines that we really need to get that student in person, we are going to work to do that. And so what that will look like will be different for every student. I know that that's a lot of the questions, is what will that look like and how does my student get in? I'm currently working on some suggestions on why that would be necessary. That's not always going to mean that that student is going to come to class, for an hour a day. Sometimes it's just going to be for a targeted service so that they can learn what it is that they were struggling with and move on. If teams are struggling to come to a consensus on this decision, so if the teacher really wants the student to come in, or if you as the parent really want your student to come in and the teacher maybe doesn't feel the same way, or vice versa, then my new lead teacher or myself will participate in these distant learning plans, just so that we can come up with the best plan possible. So I did just want to spend a little bit of time on distant learning plans, because we called them this last year. And so since they're so very different, I almost wish we would have renamed it. But they are still distant learning plans. They are going to compare significantly to your IEP minutes. So what that looks like doesn't necessarily mean that if a student receives 50 minutes of reading per day, that they're going to receive 50 minutes of instruction virtually a day, because we know that that's not necessarily what kids need to do to always get ready for learning. So for services that are just 5 days a week, then that teacher or that service provider will provide at least 5 learning activities for those students. And those can be virtual, or they can be something else. So we do have a lot of parents that have reached out to us saying that they just really don't want their students on technology all day long. And so we really have heard you, and we have other alternatives if that does not work out for your family. In addition to those 5 learning activities per week, you will be receiving 3 live virtual lessons per week that will be scheduled. We are working to schedule those right now, but we want to obviously honor the master schedules as well and make sure that we're picking the best times for your students. So we will let you know those as soon as we can. Again, the teachers come back on the 12th, so we're not going to have everything finished before then, but we will be getting this information out to you as soon as possible. I do just really want to highlight the fact that if you have a student that, for example, is speech only and receives 30 minutes per day or per week, that does not mean that they're going to get these 5 learning activities and 3 virtual lessons a week. I do know that some people really felt overwhelmed with the amount of services we provided last year, and some people didn't think it was enough, but I do want you to know that this year we plan on it being extremely comparable to the current IEP. So if they only receive 30 minutes of speech therapy, then that's likely all they will be receiving this year as well. Like the ABA professionals, your teachers will have office hours, and they will change that daily in order to be available to you at a time that works for you. Uh, those office hours might look different depending on the day. Some days they might just open up a Google Meet and let you come on there and ask questions. Some days they might meet with you specifically because there's something that you want to work on, as well as there is also going to be times when they're just available to be really emailing you back right away or calling you back with your concerns. Teachers are also, special education teachers anyway, are going to receive a half day a week to complete paperwork in collaboration with teachers, because we do have a lot of students that receive those co-teaching minutes. And so it's really important that we have time to work with the general education teachers as well, so that we can be providing accommodations and modifications for those classrooms. Teachers are still going to have a plan and lunchtime daily, so I just want you to be aware of some of these things, because if they don't respond to you right away, I just want you to know that sometimes that might be because they are on a scheduled meeting or lesson, or they might be eating lunch. Assignments are going to be monitored, graded, and we are going to be providing feedback. We are going to have assessments to assess student learning and course expectations to make sure that we are moving forward with our goals. We are going to provide grades, and those are going to be based on activities and the assessments that we provide. And we are going to be monitoring student attendance by both attending the live sessions and completing assignments. So if you're struggling with either of those things, I really am asking you to please mention those in your DLP meetings so that you can make sure to have them addressed, and we can make changes as necessary. So for those of you that are in the middle of an evaluation, I wish I had more to provide you, but as of right now, the Student Services Department is still trying to figure out how to provide these services and be compliant with state and federal special education processes. So they are planning on providing these services to schools regardless of if they are 100% virtual or not. So your student will continue with their evaluation, and they will provide much more guidance for you prior to the end of August. So those communications will come out to you either through me or the school psychologist that's working with your student. And I do just want to make sure that you understand that we will be looking at each individual child and making the best plan for them. So it's not going to be like cookie cutter, one size fits all. We're going to make sure that we are addressing all of the specific needs in each of the evaluations. So I have had a lot of questions that have come to me via email, and then I also was able to get a lot of questions from one particular mom that just knows a lot of questions that are being asked. So I did want to address some of them. Erica, are we doing okay, or should I address different questions first?
No, this is perfect. We haven't had a terrible amount of questions come into the chat, so this is perfect. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to start with these questions, and they might answer the questions that you all have. And then if not, please just make sure you're putting those questions in the chat. So how will this year look different than last year? As I said, it's going to look quite a bit different. We are still doing distant learning plans, but they will be quite a bit more aligned to the IEP. And you are going to be reevaluating them every 2 weeks. So it's important for you to state any of your concerns and strengths. Another question that I received several times is, for kids who only get limited special education services, will the SSD teachers be accessed live through Zoom, or will they check in through email and if the students have questions? And I can't answer that, only because that's going to be decided with all of you. You're going to decide that with the case manager. So if a Zoom is the most appropriate thing for your student, then that's what we want for them, and that's what will go into their DLP. But if they would prefer to just be able to chat back and forth with teachers and email back and forth, that will be okay as well, and that can be written into the DLP. Will the SSD teachers and general education teachers be actually teaching lessons on videos rather than just sending assignments like they did in the spring, and how will that look? So yes, they are actually going to be teaching lessons, and that is going to look like, I just said, it will depend on how many minutes the student does receive, but if the student is receiving minutes every single day, they will receive at least 3 virtual lessons as well as 5 learning activities per week. And so some of that will be virtual and some of that will be activities that they can do on their own. Another question that we've received a couple of times is how will students get their supplies for their lessons if they are adapted? And again, like we've mentioned a couple of times, the school buildings will not be shut down unless they have to be. We're not hoping to shut down the buildings. So if we need to get any supplies to you, it will work very similar to how you pick up Chromebooks. So we will have that scheduled for you and you will have a time to come and pick those up. Will therapists be doing live videos with students for the same number of minutes that are listed in the IEP? I can't say that with certainty that it will be the exact same amount of minutes, but they will be providing comparable services. It will be similar. So they might provide you with a virtual lesson and then provide an activity to complete after it. If students require adapted equipment that they don't have at home, how will they get that equipment? And that will be the same way. You will have a scheduled time to come and pick it up. I do want to mention though that that is related to their IEP. So we do need to have that discussion in the DLP, because if we only have, you know, 1 and we have 3 students that use it, we are going to need to request more of that from the special school district. So I just want to make sure that you are bringing those things up when your case managers call you in the middle of August. If my student receives para support on their IEP, what will the para do on these virtual days? And how can that resource be used? Is there any way to get in-person support for virtual days? So again, that will be 100% related to the DLP decision. We are absolutely planning and utilizing our paraprofessionals. We know that they are a huge reason why we have success with our students. So we absolutely want to make sure that they are a part of that learning. They can be a part of the group lessons, like I mentioned before, or they might be there to support you. They will absolutely be still supporting the ABA professionals and making sure that your kids are getting everything they need. And they might also be some of the people that are preparing some of the materials that you need. Had a lot of questions on how we plan to support our social and emotional learners. And again, that's just really hard to answer in one blanket statement, only because each child is so different. And so I just want to make sure you know that this year we are planning on having a routine and a schedule set up for all students to follow. That way we have very natural check-ins with them every single day. That this includes some virtual lessons with peers so that they're interacting with their peers. It might include in-person lessons. We do know that sometimes social skills is difficult to do virtually, so those might be, you know, some of the opportunities that we have to bring kids in. We do want, I do want to just point out that one-on-one instruction doesn't happen a lot in the setting when we're actually in person. So one-on-one instruction likely won't happen a lot now either unless it's needed. So just realize that we're going to provide as much support as we can to all of our students, but a lot of times when we need one-on-one support, we can do that in a direct way and then move on so that they can come back to their small group. The one time that I do think that that might be a little bit different is that if students do see social workers, that might still be one-on-one, and you will have to provide permission for your students to receive those services one-on-one. Like I mentioned before, a lot of kids struggle with screens and electronics, and so we've had a couple parents ask if we can send home physical work, and we can. So if that's something that you're wanting for your child, just please make sure that you mention that when we're creating our DLPs. And we'll make sure that part of that is part of the 5 learning activities that they're provided during the week. They will still be expected to show up to those virtual lessons, but those are 3 times a week at the most. And what will be some options for kids who cannot engage in lessons with teachers due to severe anxiety? How will these students be able to engage with teachers and providers to receive these services? And we're going to make these plans on a student-by-student basis. We really want to make sure that we're meeting all of the needs of our students. So we are providing several different types of learning. We're going to have synchronous, we're going to have asynchronous, we're going to have office hours, we're going to have in-person services when it's appropriate. So we're hoping that just with all of the options that we have, that we will be able to meet the needs of all students. How will students' IEPs met? Through these DLPs. So I hope that you understand how important I'm trying to really drive in these DLPs. It's very, very important for you to please try and help us create the best plan for your students when we're calling you and when we're reevaluating. Please don't let things go wrong without telling us, because we can't make things better unless we know. And then one of the last things, I'm not going to go into a ton, but I have gotten a lot of questions about South Tech. And I do want you to know that there are FAQs out for South Tech on the SSD website. And so that's something that I really hope I am going to provide you with the link for that. And it's going to be on this too. And we're going to share all of this, all of these documents with you. So this is some of the resources that SSD has put out, and it just shows you what they're doing right now. And so some of that is where you're going to find South Tech, and it's also just about how SSD is planning on returning if you have someone in a partner school. So I did want you to have all of my information so that if you're one of those people like me that really want to think about questions before you ask them tonight, this is all my information if you want to contact me tomorrow. But Erica, if you know any questions that I can answer now, I'm happy to do that.
Sure. We have a couple that I'm not sure if we know the answer to, but we'll at least go ahead and ask this. Katie and Dr. Brock, I don't know if either of you know, will services be similar for Affton early childhood? I'm not sure if we know that yet.
Yeah, I would say that, that's a topic of discussion tomorrow at our Board of Education meeting. And so I do believe we should be able to get more definitive information out maybe by the end of the week, or certainly be able to communicate when will we know how similar or possibly different the information is. So I would say as of right now, probably everything that Katie's talking about, officially kind of take that as this is how it's going to be handled K through 12. And we'll try to follow up as soon as we can when we have definitive direction for pre-kindergarten. So, yep, that's a good point. Good question. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Sure. Another popular question is, will there be an opportunity to meet teachers or therapists or paras before the first day of school? I know Gen Ed is probably planning some virtual open houses and meet the teacher. Are you planning the same, Katie?
Yes, we are also going to try and meet with all of you prior to it, and it will look very similar. So I don't foresee us necessarily having the in-person at that point in time, but we will provide that virtual meet and greet as well.
Great, thank you. How about if a student if it's decided that they need some in-person attention, will transportation be provided by SSD?
So SSD transportation is an IEP team decision. So it is not going to likely be addressed in this in-person. Transportation as of right now, I believe will not be a part of that. If it is a part of the IEP, then we will discuss that on a student-by-student basis. But SSD transportation needs a schedule that they can consistently do. And since these in-person services aren't necessarily going to be a scheduled Monday through Friday type of experience, it seems unlikely at this point.
Thank you. How about one final question? And again, this might be for Dr. Brock or Katie. Let's see. If we fall under another stay-at-home order or mandate, and school buildings are closed to staff, will they also be closed to SSD services?
Yeah, I would say, right now that's very likely that, if there's a stay-at-home order, we'll probably want folks to adhere to that as much as possible, and therefore would probably be limiting access to the building for everyone, students, staff, anyone. Probably, unfortunately, reverting back to similar to how we ended the school year as far as really having everyone work remotely. And so I don't necessarily envision us feeling comfortable that we're, doing our part if we're trying to keep the buildings open. But as a, that all of those things can certainly be revisited if there's a different thought, or if there's a thinking that somehow those are advisable, or that that can happen. We'll certainly keep that in mind. But right now, my gut feeling would be that those we would not be having anyone in the building, and they would just be closed if there's a stay-at-home order.
All right, fingers crossed that won't happen.
Yep.
I agree with that, and I think that the main point on that I just want to say on that is that the reason why we are able to go into the school right now is because the schools are open, and because this isn't only open for special education students. There might be reasons why general education students come into the buildings right now as well. So I don't want you to think that the only people in the building will be special education students. There will be other students as well. But with that being said, if they're saying that it's not safe to, and they want everyone to stay at home, then that would be, that I agree. Hopefully it doesn't happen.
Right. Let's hope we don't have to go there. One final question that just came in that I would like to address is asking about home internet. Even if someone can't get Charter or AT&T, we have put out a link for help with Wi-Fi from Affton School District. So please be sure to go ahead and click that. It's on our website. It's also been emailed several times, so be sure to fill out that form. And we have several different options for families because we want to make sure that everyone is connected. I'm going to include the feedback form one more time in the chat. So if we didn't get to you tonight, please be sure to include that. Katie and Dr. Brock, I'll let you guys close us out.
Yeah, I would just appreciate everyone joining in. It looks like we got up to about 120 folks at one point. And so appreciate everyone joining in, and wanted to just at least get a little bit of information out there. Certainly the FAQ, we'll keep up to date with that. The webinar will be posted with our roadmap information. So we'll make sure that this gets captured, that recording goes up there, as well as links to all the other information. So likewise, lots of information between now and the first day of school. So in regards to things that you would typically pick up, in person, we'll figure out ways to get those to you. So if you don't have a device now, we'll definitely make sure we have those things available to try and get you everything you need for in advance of that first day, so that you feel like you do have everything that you need, so that we can get the school year off the ground. So that's definitely a priority for us. You'll also start hearing more and more information from our building principals. So this week they're really trying to collect all of the things they can, so that the last thing they want to do is put something out and then it's changed the very next week. So they're really trying to kind of hunker down and make sure that this week, anything that they're ready to put out, there's a high likelihood that it's going to stay the same, and that they can commit to making sure that stays in place all the way through the first day. So definitely more and more information will be coming out from the building level on a lot of different specifics that they know parents need, all kids and parents need to know how those things are going to be handled.
I will just add too, I have seen a couple of questions about SNAP, and I will do my absolute best to find those answers for you and put those in the FAQ as well.
Yep. All right, well, I appreciate all the work you've done on this, Katie, and your staff. I know that everyone's going to be trying their best, and so appreciate everyone's patience and sticking with us, and just know that if I had the answers, I would have given them tonight. So it's just as simple as that. If I had all of them, I wouldn't make everyone else trouble themselves over them. I just give them. So we're all learning those answers together, and as always, appreciate your patience, and just know we're going to try to get things right. And as Katie mentioned, those 2-week checkpoints, we're going to try to do something similar, not to the extent of the DLP, but we are going to try to take the temperature of just all of our parents throughout the district on a regular basis to see how we can continue to make those modifications as the school year unfolds. So I appreciate SSD's work on already heading in that direction for their staff and students as well. With that, I think we'll go ahead and sign off. And like I said, everyone have a good evening, and appreciate you joining in. Bye-bye.
Thank you.